Okay, friends, today we are talking about compounds and specifically compound objects of a preposition. So we know, let's just back up a little bit. So we know prepositions are those words that begin a prepositional phrase. And they can only be prepositions if, in fact, they begin a prepositional phrase. They can't just be standalone. They have to be part of that group of words that is a phrase that in some way describes a relationship to location or time. Okay, so we've got that in our mind. Now let's think about what compounds are. So we know what prepositions are, we know prepositional phrases, and today we're talking specifically about the object of those prepositional phrases. That's the noun or pronoun at the end of those prepositional phrases. And so let's talk about what are compounds. What does that even mean? What is a compound? So if you think about it in chemistry, a compound is not just one single thing, but a couple of things mixed together. So a compound means two or more things together. And we sometimes use compound as a verb. To compound something means to make it bigger, add on to it, add more things to it. So I like sometimes think like compounding my joy. So if you're joyful, sometimes that just begins to compound. More things make you joyful, more joyful things appear to you. So compound means more than one thing. All right, so let's take a look at this first sentence. Maybe I'll just put that up here. More than one, and in this case, more than one object. Object of the preposition. Okay, more than one object of the preposition. So we're going to talk about compound objects of a preposition. So when I say more than one, of course, there could be two or three or four, right? Sentences could get pretty lengthy. They're probably not going to extend much beyond that, but it doesn't just mean two. It means more than one. All right, so let's look at this first sentence and let's find our prepositional phrase like we always do, put a line through it, and then let's find our subject and our verb. Just review what we always do in the workbook. So let's see, I'm sure you found it by now. Our prepositional phrase starts with the preposition inside, and it is only a preposition because it tells us in relation to what, inside what, libraries. So we're going to put a line through that like we always do, just a nice straight line. Because it doesn't disappear from our sentence, it's still there. We're just taking it out of our mind. We're unmuddying that water so we can find our true subject and verb and make sure they agree with each other. All right, so our subject, books are, what is the who or the what? The books, one underline. And then we have a linking verb here. So action or being, the books are being something, they are. And so we double underline that. Great. Let's change this sentence a little bit just so that we can see how we can compound that object. So books are inside libraries, but of course books could be inside lots of places, right? So they're inside libraries. What about inside schools? You could think of some other place in your mind where books could be inside your desk, right? Inside libraries and my desk. They could be inside your backpack, inside libraries and my backpack, inside a bookstore, inside libraries and bookstores. So I think I had said they're inside libraries and schools. Let me add that on there. Libraries and schools. So we see I didn't just write schools in here. When I compounded those objects of the preposition there, I had to put something that allows a compound to come together, and that's our conjunction and. Don't forget about our fanboys. Here's our conjunction, conjoining, bringing things together. In this case, the things we're bringing together are the objects of this preposition inside. So we're still a relationship inside what, but now we've got a couple of different relationships inside libraries, inside schools, right? So our prepositional phrase now has changed. We can't stop with libraries anymore because that's not the end of the phrase anymore. Something weird would happen here. We wouldn't have anything and schools. What is that? Where does that fit? It's like, why is that floating around? It's part of this inside. It's still telling us about being inside. giving us two options in this case because we can have more than one. We can have two or more. In this case, we're getting two. So I'm going to continue on with my line to the end of my prepositional phrase, which includes both objects of the preposition. Don't forget, there could be three more, right? But here we have two. All right, let's look at these example sentences. I run on a track and a treadmill. Neither one of those is very fun. Running through the woods is better. We could add some more things here if we want to. We can make it longer. But let's find our prepositional phrase. Can you find the preposition? Good, yeah, I see it on. Fantastic. And so on what? Our relationship to what? A track. Definitely on a track. But it's more than just that. This conjunction helps us, gives it away a bit. It could say or here. That would be kind of an interesting conjunction to throw in there, and it would be fine. Relationship is to a track, but it is also to a treadmill. So I run on a track and a treadmill. The track and the treadmill are both the things that on is giving us the relationship toward. Okay? So let's put our line through this complete prepositional phrase. You got it. On a track and a treadmill. Wow, it really narrows down our subject and verb, doesn't it? Yeah. So our subject, the who or the what, I. And what are we doing? We're running. Got a nice little action verb there. Single word action verb. All right, I run on a track and a treadmill. But I could have said I run on a track, comma, the street, comma, and a treadmill. I could have had three things there, right? And they all would have been part of my prepositional phrase. They would have been still compound objects of the preposition on. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at this last one before we head over to the workbook. After breakfast and dinner, I brush my teeth. So objects of the preposition are not always at the end of a sentence, right? They're just always at the end of the prepositional phrase. So here, our prepositional phrase is not at the end. We find it somewhere else in the sentence. Have you found it? Yeah, so our preposition is after. And that's one of those time kinds of prepositions, right? After tells us the location and time. But location and time in relation to what? Location and time in relation to eating breakfast and eating dinner in this case. So we have this compound object of the preposition. So let's cross out the whole prepositional phrase. And then we have what actually happens in that timing, being described as when. And so we have a lot of words here. So it's still maybe a little bit muddy to find that subject and that verb. So who or the what is doing something? Are the teeth doing something here? I mean, they're having something done to them, yeah, but they're not doing something. They don't pick up their own little toothbrush and swirl around in there, right? It's me, it's I. I am the one who's picking up the toothbrush and using it. So I is my subject, and then we sort of just went forward with that. We know what the verb is here. I am brushing, I brush, I brush. So I know that a lot of you are thinking about what is this teeth then? And some of you from last year hopefully will remember I brush what, the verb, and asking what, the direct object, brush teeth. Yeah, so you probably got that in your mind too. Great job. All right, so if you are watching this as a fourth grader, we're going to keep going, and we're going to do an example in your workbook. If you're watching this as a fifth grader, you can just turn it off now because your workbook doesn't have the same pages or sentences. All right, so here's our workbook page 10. So my fourth graders, we're still working on compounds, and this is compound objects of the preposition. So we're on page 10, and let's do sentence number 1 together to get you started. And then I want to do sentence number 9 to remind you of something else that's a little, not about compound object of preposition, but something that I just want you to remember. So let's look at number 1. Their mother makes a soup with beef and dumplings. So where do we find our object of the prepositions let's start by finding the preposition, the prepositional phrase, and then look for those nouns, okay? So the preposition in that sentence. Yes, with, exactly. And so now we're going to ask with what? In relation to what? Beef, definitely, but anything else? Yeah, dumplings. Yeah, with beef and dumplings. That's what's in the soup. That is what the soup is with. So we have that compound, objects of the preposition. Now your workbook doesn't ask you to do this, but lots of times the workbook will, so I don't know why it doesn't this time. So I'm just going to put OP on top of it just because these are objects of the preposition, and it just brings it into my mind when I see things labeled. I like that, so feel free to do that if you'd like. All right, so now let's go back. We know we need to look for the subject and the verb. We always do that. So who is the who or the what that's doing something here? Mother, the simple subject, mother. Yeah, it is their mother that's doing it, yes. But if we're really honing in on that simple subject, it's mother. Okay, and what is mother doing? Yeah, she makes. Makes what? Here we know we have a soup. That's our direct object. Great job. This is describing our soup. Fantastic. Okay. All right, fourth graders, let's take a look at number 9 on the same page 10, number 9, down at the bottom. I wonder if you are looking at this, if you have any, if you can see why I might want to go over this one. We haven't seen him since Monday or Tuesday. So this one's a couple of things that are just a little bit different from our examples. So let's start with finding our prepositional phrase. And this one has to do with time, a location and time. And it's not a super popular prepositional phrase. We don't see it, or preposition, sorry, we don't see it all the time. So it's, maybe we have to dig a little harder. Have you found it? Yeah, it's since. Since Monday or Tuesday. So that's our complete prepositional phrase. Now, what's a little different in here? We have 2 objects of the preposition, so that's not different. We've been seeing that in this work today. But look here, we have a different conjunction. We have or instead of and. That's perfectly fine. We're still conjoining them, we just have a little different meaning. Now we're saying one or the other, one but not the other one, the other but not the first, as opposed to both, right? That's fine. So we still have this compound object of the preposition, slightly different conjunction, perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and put our line through there. And then let's find our subject. Who is it that is doing something? Who's doing something? Is it him that's doing something? No, it's not him that's doing something. And first of all, if him were doing something, we would really be in trouble because it would be he that was doing something, right? So this we know is an object right there. Can't be a subject. But we are the ones that are doing something. And what are we doing? What are we doing? So here, I really want you to be careful because there's a verb phrase. There's a verb phrase and an adverb stuck right in the middle of it. So I want you to remember when you have that not, this is an adverb. It is not part of our verb. Not is not part of the verb. Funny how that works. So I'm boxing it, which they ask you to do in the workbook. I'm boxing it to say it's not part of the verb. It has to be pulled out. Yeah, it's an adverb. It's just describing the have seen. Have seen? Not. Yeah. So here we have our verb phrase, have, and be careful because you can't do a double underline all the way through because not isn't part of our verb, right? So we have to do this as 2 separate lines. When else do we do 2 separate lines like that? Yeah, when we see a question, right? Our verb phrases are always separated by the subject when we have an interrogative sentence. We have that question. Did you see? You sticks right there in the middle of did and see. So we can't use a double underline for that one either, right? Okay, so I wanted to point that out because it's a little bit weird. But remember too, when you get into page 10, that compounds mean more than one object of the preposition. We've seen them as two, but they mean more than one. That's a clue. You're going to find that on your workbook, page 10. All right, head off and do that, 4th grade. Thank you.